Part 102. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 1017. There are two voices in Taoran's head now. Emotionally, after being praised for so long, she was naturally overjoyed and wanted to quickly confirm this so-called letter of intent. But intellectually, she always felt that something was wrong. She didn't like the feeling of being led around. And maybe because she has been tricked by the system so many times, her subconscious thought that they would continue to trick her. Of course, the most important thing is that she has been controlled by the disease her whole life, and she has not yet been able to completely get over it. Now she has to be trapped by a contract again. She was a little timid about this. What she has always pursued is freedom. Now if she was asked to continue to bet on herself, she really couldn't make up her mind. If I agree, how long will I have to work for you in the future? It's not a matter of risking one's life. The time is out of the question right now. The male voice deepened again, looking much more serious. But once the cooperation is confirmed and our involvement takes effect, your employment period will be at least 10 years, or the contract can be terminated only after you meet the performance set by your supervisor. Although these two conditions may not sound very good, in our world, 10 years can be achieved in just a blink of an eye. As for the performance set by your supervisor, I think it can be easily accomplished based on your ability. These two items are no challenge to you at all. At that time, you can choose to return to the original world or stay in our world. Now you are worried about working hours, but I believe that you may not be willing to leave voluntarily when the time comes. In addition, I would like to emphasize again that our place is fair and democratic, and there will be absolutely no such thing as coercion. You can first confirm the letter of intent and then think about it slowly. After you think it through, you can confirm with us and join us at any time. So you don't have to worry about anything. Of course, if you have any ideas, you can mention them now. I have no other ideas. I just think everything you mentioned is too considerate and perfect. Including you, such a nice voice is also very unreal. I never believe in people or things that are too perfect. Perhaps, can you impress me with a more practical point? To prevent the pirate ship from being confused, Taoran tried again. For example, since I am already half of your people, I must have some preferential treatment when speaking and doing things for my own people, right? Can I be given more rewards, and can I count less points for redeeming supplies? After all, I am my own person people. From now on you will never look up when you look down, right? Taoran knew that he would definitely get on this boat. In order to prevent the other party from playing tricks and stepping on the trap in the future, she might as well try to gather more wool now. Then even if it is discovered to be a pirate ship in the future, I can feel more mentally balanced. She planned to ask for more benefits. After all, the Space-Time Management Bureau could only save her life, but it couldn't help her break away from her bond with Elizabeth. If possible, she hoped to get rid of the old witch. Taoran thought a lot, but he didn't know that the man on the other side of the console finally had a smile on his frozen face. He is so satisfied with the one he selected this time. Didn't he design this game just to find someone who could use it? Only this one attracted his attention from the moment he appeared. Naturally, she would not know that her misfortunes were all set by him, her levels were set by him alone several times, and he naturally gave her a huge reward fairly. He must catch the person he falls in love with at first sight. In order to capture this woman, he specially gave her a golden horn. He was afraid that the system would not be attractive enough and would lead to a loss of talent, so he made an exception and recruited her in person. He didn't expect that there would be such a person who could make the cake himself. Interesting. It doesn't matter, let me repay the promise I made today with my hard work tomorrow. Since you are sincerely recruiting me, would you like to express your interest first? Taoran was still fighting for it. The man continued to sweeten the deal. If you are one of your own, you can get a 20% discount on points redeemed for rewards. Where's the signing fee? I don't care about other industries. We artists all get signing fees. Okay. I'll make an exception. In addition to getting rewards redeemed with points, you can also choose 3 more items. The 20% off discount still needs to be redeemed. Ken. The man gritted his teeth and reassured himself that it didn't matter. Write down this account first, and there will always be a way for her to pay it back in the future. So. Taoran looked at the screen and his smile became even brighter. Then I just submitted that you need 70,000 points for the crystal minerals and spiritual water. Should you also give me one? And a discount? Also a 20% discount. The person on the other side waited for 3 full seconds before replying yes. Taoran was as thick-skinned as ever. 7, 8, 56. How about 55,000? A round number, sounds good. Wouldn't it be better to round up to 60,000? The man mocked. You are the boss, the supervisor, and my future colleague and leader. Don't worry about this. The person on the other side said nothing, which was regarded as acquiescence. Taoran felt happy, and even the male voice didn't seem so annoying. Afraid that the other party would regret it, Taoran quickly submitted the 55,000 points for the old witch's mineral spirit water. As soon as she confirmed here, a treasure box appeared on the table. When he opened it, he found a black ore that he didn't recognize and a red potion that was as thick as blood. However, with just this glance, there was a buzzing sound in Taoran's head, his heart beat several times faster, and even his blood flow seemed to be much faster. She had a splitting headache, almost knelt down, and quickly closed the lid. At the reminder of the male voice, she immediately opened the box containing the aura crystal, grabbed the crystal in her hand, and activated the purification technique she learned in the tomb, and her whole body stabilized. Did you see something you shouldn't have seen? The male voice said coldly. Taoran didn't answer. Indeed, at that moment, she not only saw, but seemingly hundreds of negative images of arrogance, luxury, cruelty, and cruelty, all coming at her, as if the gates of hell had been opened. All the senses in her body were instantly amplified, and all her emotions and desires seemed to be expanding infinitely. What a terrible dark feeling. The male voice snorted again, these things you exchanged are not righteous things. Because they are evil spirits, the price is high. It is precisely because the cause has been planted in your body for a long time, so you just got hooked. Explosive potential. On the other hand, your own spiritual power is strong and you are protected by golden spiritual objects. Therefore, at that moment, your body was so painful when the good and evil clashed between your spirit and your soul. I need to remind you that the person you are going to deal with, since you are being exchanged for these things, it also means that that person is not far away from making a comeback. He deliberately didn't remind her not to open the treasure box, just to let her experience for herself the pain she might face in the near future, and also to let her know how much evil she might bring and how much of a burden she was carrying. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 1018. Taoran finally realized the kindness of the other person, and there was a hint of respect in his words. I was just impulsive about the contents of this treasure box. Can I return half of it? She admitted that after Elizabeth repeatedly emphasized that she should bring back these things, and she also promised that she would complete the task, in order not to have more entanglements with the old witch, she did not think too much this time on the premise that she had enough points. I chose to redeem it. She originally thought that Elizabeth wanted the same thing as what she got after the last survival game, just to help her recover, but she never expected that these things would be so overbearing. If all this was really given to Elizabeth, the consequences would be disastrous. The male voice waited for a second. The guaranteed points for all players who have passed the survival game this time are 60,000. There will be an announcement and ranking. Since you have passed the level, that person can at least confirm that you have more than 60,000 points. If you are cheating, I'm afraid it's not good for you. Announcement. Taoran had a headache. Yes, Elizabeth had been planning for this survival game, but if the result did not go as she expected, Taoran's mind was filled with images from 100 layers of illusions. In the void of the game, Elizabeth might not let her go. Now I am still tightly restrained by her, and I need time to strengthen my soul and get rid of the imprisonment. Your suggestion is: retreat 1/3. Just take a piece of ore and spiritual water. Try to delay the time it takes for the opponent to come back. And use this time to prepare. Taoran nodded and put the treasure box back. After missing one item, the system immediately refunded 18,000 points. Taoran had another 95,000 points in his hand. Can you figure out how much preparation time I'll probably have? Male voice, 3 months to a year. It can be long or short. This period of time must be grasped well. Taoran started her formal exchange. She calculated that if the points were redeemed for 11 rewards, the points required after the 20% discount would be 8,800 points, and 96,000 points would be needed to exchange for 12 rewards. But in her hand, she couldn't bear to exchange for 11 pieces, and the difference was another 1,000 points when she exchanged for 12 pieces. She became shameless again and wanted to exchange 95,000 points for 12 rewards. Okay. The difference of 1,000 points will be repaid by working overtime in the future, just don't regret it when the time comes. The man is very happy this time. Okay. Taoran didn't think much and was in a hurry to choose something. She already had a rough idea of what she wanted. On the display screen in front of her that was densely packed with object identifications, every time she checked and confirmed an item, a real object appeared on the table in front of her. 3 weapons have been obtained. Bows and arrows, dragon whiskers, and long swords with bonuses. There are no such good things in the real world. Since these things can follow her to any virtual or real situation, she must take them all. A telescopic bag is also what she needs. With this, everything harvested should be stuffed in, and Elizabeth shouldn't be able to find it. She drew a lottery and chose a shelter that could last for 1 hour and a scroll of invisibility. These 2 things are likely to be her life-saving treasures. Taoran took the dragon scales from the fire dragon and the white dragon respectively. They can be used as armor and are essential for self-defense. That's it, 7 pieces. Taoran chose Longbow's egg liquid, the magic potion given to her by the wizard, Longbow's tears, the healing nectar given by Bai Long, and offensive underwear. Already 12 pieces. There are still a few good things left. She spent points to redeem bonus rings, bracelets, potions to improve attributes, and the NPC python snake bloodfangs and other items. It seems that they cannot be exchanged. That's all. I confirm. Yeah. There are 3 extra items, which are considered as rewards for the signing fee. Let's talk about it. Taoran has already thought about it. The first thing is, I want poison, not ordinary, but something that can deal with any monsters and monsters. The kind that can be effective whether it is body or soul. It can make them die or paralyze them. By the way, it also has to be colorless and odorless, so it can't be easily detected. There are quite a lot of requirements. The voice on the other side was muffled. This thing is not an ordinary reward. It is far more than 10,000 points. I know that as long as I can get rid of that old monster, I will do a good job in the future and I will not let the bureau down. Deal. Taoran would not know that the man on the other side of the screen was waiting for her statement. A second later, Taoran had an extra potion in his hand. Not much, just a few drops. Man, it can be taken or injected into the skin. The person who takes the medicine may be unconscious, or the strength and soul will be completely lost. The specific onset and maintenance time will depend on the quality of the subject. It will take effect in 10 minutes at the fastest. But you're the target of taking this medicine is not ordinary, it is best to use this medicine only as an auxiliary, don't have too much hope. Taoran nodded and thanked. The second reward I want to give to Daudu. Daudu, my little assistant, that little girl. Let her choose the reward and let her take it. Taoran has already asked Daudu that he can go back to his original world. But as a non-player, being able to go back is a reward, but naturally you are left empty-handed. However, whoever is willing to risk their life to participate in the game does not have their own troubles that need to be solved urgently. Besides, it's still a child. Daudu had been with him through life and death, so Taoran was willing to give her some rewards. After all, it is not certain whether these rewards will be useful to you in the end, but for many players, they may be a treasure to solve the difficulties in life. You sure? Sure. The man nodded. His right mind was exactly what he liked about this person. Although such people often accidentally become women's benevolence and holy saints, such qualities become increasingly scarce with the development and competition of the world, even in the higher world. The administrators needed in that position must have 3 righteous views so that the increasingly thin light of righteousness in every world can flourish. Giving and gaining is the way to balance. Although the man agreed in his heart, he said, I have never had a precedent of award transfer here. Do me a favor. I promise, I will work hard in the future. Very good, the male voice answered a little too cheerfully. Third, I need your help. Speak out. Help me cover up. You should have seen my 100th level illusion. I can't let that person find out that I got a lot of rewards, otherwise not only will they all be taken away, I'm afraid my life will be in danger. Help me think of a way to prevent him from discovering that I have gained many things. In addition, it makes me look pitiful and weak. It would be better if I only have 1 breath left and need to go back and recuperate for a year and a half before I feel better. If you can, don't let the old witch see your published points, rankings, etc., or use a trick to make her believe that I just barely walked out of the game. Taoran said it in one breath. The man's eyebrows arched. Very good. It's obvious that his new employee has already dealt with it, so it seems like he doesn't have to worry too much. Are you sure this is a request? I know I mentioned a bit too much. But we will all be colleagues from now on. Please pay more attention to me now, and I will work hard to repay you in the future. Very good. It's settled. Once again, the man answered quickly. His reply was so fast that Taoran felt, this man seemed like a capitalist waiting to exploit him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 1019. The settlement was all completed, and Taoran also had a tattoo on his wrist. If you look closely, you will find that it is a butterfly pattern. This is the mark left on her by the space-time administration. Now this butterfly is equivalent to the text of the contract. When you drop blood on this butterfly, our formal contract will take effect, and you will officially be a member of the space-time administration. Let me remind you that our protection mechanism for you will only take effect after you sign a formal contract and become a regular employee. So to keep your life safe, it is recommended that you sign the contract early. Yet Taoran could only agree casually. Granny Hua is still fine, but she will definitely not be able to take office immediately. So the best way is to rely on your own efforts as much as possible. In addition, there is one more thing, the male voice added, our protection mechanism is implemented across worlds, which is not easy. You know, work in any world is paid according to work. We trust you to help you, and you also it has to be repaid. Therefore, Every time we protect you, it means that you have to work for us for 10 more years. 10 years, isn't it a bit long? Why does this contract sound like a contract of sale? It only takes you 10 years to protect your life. It's a good deal. And don't forget, after you become one of us, your lifespan will be extended and the flow of your life will slow down. Again, 10 years, just a snap of the fingers, that's all. Having said this, Taoran didn't want to say anything more. Besides, these are not things she has to consider yet. Taoran packed up all his rewards and was about to leave, when his wrists suddenly felt hot. A golden light flashed across the butterfly tattoo, and then, most of Taoran's strength seemed to have been drained away. She suddenly felt exhausted, her whole body felt weak, she felt dizzy and almost fell over. At the same time, she could no longer feel the aura emanating from the aura crystal. She knew that the cover promised to her by the other party was working. I checked my pulse, but it was weak and weak. After sensing the internal organs, it seemed that only 1/3 of the functions were functioning. The soul is even more weak, and Chun Chun is seriously injured and may fall down at any time. Taoran was not satisfied with the reflection from the display screen. She also deliberately messed up her hair, sat down cross-legged, and used her internal energy. A minute later, due to poor blood flow, her face turned pale, her lips were completely discolored, and her whole body became a little haggard. But the male voice over there couldn't help but muttered, as expected of an actor. "What's this?" Taoran was not satisfied. "If I had a makeup palette, I could look 10 times worse." "What a pity," Taoran sighed, "even if there is a branch." The person on the other side was probably curious. 3 seconds later, Taoran had a branch in his hand. Taoran picked up the lighter on the table, lit the branches and put them out, then dipped in some black ash. 3 minutes later, Taoran appeared in front of him with a gray complexion, 2 big black circles under his eyes, and purple lips. At this time, her appearance was no different from those of seriously ill and dying people. The male voice clicked his tongue and said, "Then I wish you a safe journey." There was a golden light on Taoran's face. The person opposite was very considerate and had already set her makeup. The black, purple, black, and gray colors that had been painted on her face had penetrated into the texture, no longer floating on the surface, but from the inside out, it was impossible to be the kind of effect Elizabeth discovered. Taoran thanked him. She glanced at the table, gritted her teeth, and asked again shamelessly. "That mask, I want to take it away too. Can you give it to me?" When she was choosing supplies before, she didn't even consider taking away the mask. But when she was just putting on makeup, she suddenly realized that the masks in the survival game were of little use. But when she returned to reality, wouldn't it be much more convenient for her to travel around the world if she had an extra face? "I can give it to you. But I can't give it away. Again, I can give it on credit, and you'll use your labor to compensate for it in the future." "Yeah. Okay." Taoran didn't have to worry about having too many debts, so he didn't think much about it. As soon as she finished saying this, the mask was already in her hands. After thinking about it, Taoran simply took another top-notch dagger. "I will pay for my hard work from now on." He put the mask into his bag and stuck the dagger in his boot. Just as he was about to turn around, Taoran asked, "By the way, I forgot to ask, what's your name?" "No need to ask, there will be many opportunities to look at each other in the future. Have a good trip and look forward to meeting you soon." This time, there was a hint of joy in the man's voice. Taoran vaguely heard the feeling that he would soon fall into another pit. Still doesn't feel right. If I never trigger the formal contract, I wonder if I can get through it. As Taoran guessed, and as the contents of 100 layers of fantasy, Elizabeth, whom she hadn't seen for a long time, was already waiting in the void. Her figure flashed and jumped back and forth, revealing her anxiety. When she sensed Chaoran's appearance, her beautiful face instantly revealed a breathtaking smile. "My dear, thank you for your hard work." She was there almost in the blink of an eye. "Reward," she held out her hand. "Why are you like this?" Seeing Chaoran's excessive weakness, Elizabeth was also frightened. "This, even hurts the soul? Why is there so much less golden light on his body?" She frowned. "Have you got all the rewards?" The actress looked in agony, took out the treasure box and handed it out with trembling hands, as if she didn't even have the strength to speak. The moment she got the treasure box, Elizabeth's whole body trembled like an electric shock. Her face was sometimes distorted, sometimes intoxicated, sometimes angry and ferocious, and sometimes out of control to the point of deformation. After she laughed, she screamed, "There's something missing. Where's the thing? Where's the thing?" She waved her hand, and Chaoran flew out without any resistance or defense. Seeing her flying further and further away like a leaf, the frustrated Elizabeth could only grab her hand again, and Chaoran was dragged back again like a kite. "I'm sorry," Chaoran continued her almost exhausted performance. "I tried my best, but I was plotted against me. I only had enough to exchange for so many rewards." Elizabeth was obviously not satisfied with this answer and did not believe it. Human beings are so cunning, and the human being in front of us is no exception. I think she had always emphasized that she would get half of the reward. With such a good opportunity, she must have hidden the treasure. "It's best. Otherwise, if you are caught by me, I will tear you into pieces." Elizabeth closed her hand on Chaoran's head, feeling whether Chaoran's injury was real or fake, whether it was serious or a fool, feeling whether there was a treasure from another world on Chaoran's body. Her wife is disappointed. How she hoped that Chaoran was lying to her. "You're pretending to be sick. It's a secret." But it seems, not. This guy was actually seriously injured. Even the soul was damaged. If you can't take care of it well, you will be disabled even if you don't die. Elizabeth was immediately angry. She had already regarded Chaoran as a treasure, a meal on her plate, and now that it was like this, the nutritional value of this delicious meal would be greatly reduced. She was so angry. Even the grumpy Elizabeth didn't detect any scent of exotic treasures on Chaoran. How come? Impossible. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 1020. Really unwilling to give in, Elizabeth's chicken-foot-like hands seemed to have given birth to 10 of them at once, searching inside and outside Chaoran's body. Chaoran simply lay down and closed his eyes, letting the old witch do whatever she wanted. Very nice. It's better to pretend to be sick, so you don't even have to look at the old witch's nightmarish face. At this moment, she is applauding her wit. In fact, Chaoran didn't want to face this old monster. Not only was she afraid of being coerced and tortured by her, telling too many stories would lead to loopholes, and lying would make it impossible to get it right, but she was also afraid that the old witch would do something to her. The old witch used the restraints in her soul to torture her just by moving her fingers. Chaoran couldn't beat him, so he didn't want to suffer this meaningless loss. So she chose to face it in a half-dead state. At this moment, she was like a fragile rose, unable to withstand any storm, and had no strength to explain too much. This was destined that the old witch would not dare to be cruel to her easily even if she was full of anger. And in order to enjoy her better in the future, I have to be more tolerant of her. Then in the next period of time, Chaoran can use the name of healing to buy himself as much time as possible to prepare to break free from the restriction. Chaoran had a plan, so he let Elizabeth look around. Elizabeth, who was cursing, suddenly screamed and shouted, "Found it!" She took out the contents of the inner pocket of Chaoran's coat. "What? A bottle of witchcraft water that can strengthen the body and exorcise evil spirits?" Rubbish. In her heyday, she often used this thing as a reward. After digging again, Elizabeth found another bottle. What? Just 2 drops of potion? She checked it and found it was still garbage. Used to heal injuries and maintain health. Keep digging, it's the last one. What? Just a dagger? When I pulled it out, I saw that there was no witchcraft or magic power, which means it was sharper. Rubbish. Rubbish. To her, it's all rubbish. You won't tell me that all the things you exchanged are here, right? Useless thing, Elizabeth roared. She was so angry. For this survival game, she spent most of her accumulated energy. Obviously, the reward this time was not satisfactory to her who had high hopes. Although Taoran brought back 70% of the reward, one missing piece meant that she would have twice as much trouble and time to recover, and her plan would also be ruined. In this way, her plan can only be postponed, and her comeback will have to wait. Of course, the dead girl was so seriously injured that she had to wait. Elizabeth became angry just thinking about it. She was already ready to break up and take away the dead girl's reward. But who knew that none of the things this stupid girl exchanged could be used by herself? Now she doesn't even have the desire to rob. Elizabeth's hands pinched Taoran's neck. Did you lie to me? You have other treasures. Taoran shook his head weakly. In order to hear her explanation, Elizabeth impulsively mobilized her original witchcraft power to give Taoran a blow. Taoran, who was unprepared, trembled and sat up like a corpse. At the same time, he felt that his body was much smoother. The pressure on the soul is relieved, and the blockage in the body is reduced. Taoran felt relaxed, but Elizabeth's figure looked a little lighter. She was very happy. There was such a good thing. The old witch was still strangling her neck, asking her to come quickly. Taoran. That's really all I got. This survival game is based on points. I ran very fast at first, but then I offended someone, and they made things difficult for me. Thanks to me, I hugged my thigh and rubbed against a big girl. I just barely managed to pass the level. I didn't complete many mental levels, so I only got 65,000 points in the end. Rewards are redeemed with these game points. Objects in the game can be exchanged for 10,000 points. But the supplies you want are not in the game, so the system quotes 70,000 points. This number is too high and my points cannot be exchanged at all. Originally, according to our promise, each person should receive half the reward. I'll just give you a reward of 32,000 points. I was just afraid that you would be angry, so I used more than half of it, 40,000 points, to exchange it for you. I really tried my best. There are 25,000 points left, 10,000 of which are for the medicine my mother-in-law needs to strengthen her body, and the other 10,000 are for me to treat my own injuries. The dagger is a low-level item. I begged and the system gave me 5,000 points at half price. What I said is real. If you don't believe it, just go and verify it yourself. If I tell a lie, you can do whatever you want with it. Taoran's eyes were filled with sincerity. Oh, I have to say, the 100th level experienced in the game is indeed quite useful. After the illusion on that level, Taoran thought a lot about how to play with the old witch. All the really useful things are hidden anyway. The 3 things he put on his body, the wizard's potion, the white dragon nectar and the top-notch dagger, were all used to fool the old monster. If you are injured, you will naturally need medicine for treatment. As my mother-in-law gets old, she naturally needs to be nursed back to health. These things are inconspicuous, but they are so logical that the old witch cannot find fault with them. She had no injuries, and no body to support, plus a dagger that was just scrap metal to her, so there was no need for the old witch to take it away. Only in this way could Taoran keep all the rewards. Elizabeth was furious. Stupid humans, there are so many good things in the other world, but they choose the most useless ones. She didn't even want to see Tao Ran. Before leaving, she warned Tao Ran again. "I've been very busy recently. I may not even call you, and I don't have time to talk to you." Elizabeth tightened the treasure box in her hand. "Just be honest with me. When we meet next time, maybe I can break the curse for you." Elizabeth finally left. Tao Ran returned to the real world and couldn't get up for a while. The sequelae of pretending to be seriously ill were so severe that she felt top-heavy and couldn't exert any strength. But her first reaction was to touch the telescopic bag hidden on her waist. The bag bears her mark and will only appear when she thinks of it. Holding this bag, Tao Ran felt much more at ease. If nothing unexpected happens next, she should have a long period of preparation time. She had to hurry up. Survival games are very rewarding. The aura crystal must be used, the dragon song technique must be practiced, and the treasures obtained must be arranged properly. Too tired. Tao Ran simply took a nap and woke up at dawn. Looking at it, it turns out that only 3 days have passed. Get up, stretch your muscles and bones, go to the courtyard to meditate, absorb the power of the sun and the moon, and let the spiritual power circulate in the body, making the whole body feel comfortable. At 9 o'clock in the morning, she officially started a new and busy day. I turned on my mobile phone and called Shan Shan to handle some work. I browsed the unread messages in the Taoist group and took a few orders for making peace charms. She also has a lot of drawn peace charms on her hand, just for Shan Shan to send a courier. There is no other way. People are poor, why don't they do this quick money trick? Before she finished taking the order, Wu Leidao had already called her and said that the ancient books that Tao Ran asked him to collect had arrived. Tao Ran was originally going to find him and asked him to put his things away first and come over later. After tidying up, Tao Ran drove out in his small car. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 1021. In reality, they had only seen each other for a few days, but to Tao Ran, she had been separated from her mother-in-law for several months. So even though there was a lot to do, Tao Ran's first priority was to go see Granny Hua quickly. She stayed in the nursing home for 3 hours and had a meal with Granny Hua. After the meal, she personally fed Granny Hua the wizard potion she brought back from the game world to drink. After taking this medicine, it will ensure that Grandma Hua will have no pain for the rest of her life, and she will be strong and healthy, and everything she eats will taste good. For the elderly, this is the most needed gift, isn't it? Tao Ran had a smile on his face. The health of her relatives, regardless of whether she can completely escape Elizabeth's control, has relieved her of a big worry. Granny Hua took a nap after meals as a habit, so Tao Ran left. After getting in the car, she took out the mask and planned to go to Wu Leidao's place to try the effect. After applying it to the face, I pinched and adjusted it. What appeared in the rearview mirror was an unfamiliar face. Long and narrow eyes, thick nose, thick lips, plus a pair of dimples that Tao Ran always wanted but didn't have. It's just a pure and ordinary face, which can be said to be completely different from Tao Ran's almost perfect appearance before. Relation. Sure enough, even the security guard at the nursing home didn't recognize her. But within a minute of driving out, Tao Ran encountered a lunatic. She happened to be driving her car when a person came out of nowhere and blocked the road 100 meters away. I flashed the lights and honked the horn, but the man didn't move. Tao Ran could only give directions, but no matter which way she turned, the man followed her. The man just stopped in front of her car so calmly. Looking for trouble? No. She hasn't offended anyone recently. Paparazzi? Not even that. Because this person is a foreigner? And he's wearing a mask. It was definitely impossible to recognize myself. The man had no intention of avoiding him. Tao Ran couldn't hit him, so he had to brake. Rolling down the window, She suppressed her anger and asked, "What do you mean?" As he got closer, Taoran took a closer look at the foreigner, who was about 30 years old. He had brown hair and blue eyes, pale complexion, no color on his face, and was in a bad mental state. She confirmed again that she did not recognize this person. "It's me, Lao Bai." The man stood 3 meters away. His voice was not loud, but it reached Taoran's ears clearly. "Lao Bai? What?" Taoran's eyes lit up and he quickly jumped out of the car. "Is it Mr. Bai?" Mr. Bai, whom he met in the world of cultivating immortals. Taoran always expected to meet him again, but never saw him. Who would have thought that Mr. Bai would find him in the real world? She had so many things to ask Mr. Bai. "Finally we meet." "Yes. I came here specifically to find you." That person, won't find out, right?" Taoran looked around cautiously and wanted to put a restraint on him, but was stopped by Mr. Bai. "Don't worry. She can't control here, and she can't spy on it. It's different here. She has a natural suppression of monsters and ghosts. Well, after the founding of the People's Republic of China, no such thing was allowed. The world was bright and clear here, which was pretty good. And didn't you bring back the treasure for that witch? She is busy refining it. At this time, she needs strong concentration. She will not notice if you break the sky here. It is also because of this, I will come to you directly." Taoran nodded one after another. "We have to talk." Taoran gestured to Mr. Bai to get in the car. "Go to my house." Mr. Bai waved his hand. "How about going to the nursing home behind? There is a tea house next to the bamboo forest, which is good for talking. It's just a few steps away." Mr. Bai shook his head again. "Then get in my car." "No, you listen to me first." Mr. Bai refused again, took a few steps back, and distanced himself again. "There's something I didn't tell you before. My body is half vampire blood. Among you, I can be considered half demon. Many things have a suppressive effect on me." Lao Bai feels bitter. After he arrived in this country, he began to block Taoran. Taoran's residence was found through previous paparazzi revelations. No matter how good the security of the villa on the mountain is, how can it stop him? As soon as he arrived the day before yesterday, he visited Taoran's house at night, planning to wait for her return at her house. But who knew that as soon as he approached her house, his soul would begin to wander and start to hurt? He concluded that Taoran's family had something to suppress him. He can only change places. He came to the nursing home. He knew that as soon as Taoran came back, she would definitely come to see her mother-in-law. But who knows, he won't be able to enter this nursing home. There were strange patterns everywhere in this nursing home. As soon as he approached, he felt uncomfortable all over. After much research, he finally found the office address of Taoran's assistant Shan Shan. When he found the place, he felt uncomfortable again before he could get closer. Shan Shan also had a restriction on him that he couldn't get close to. As pitiful as he was, he could only choose to go back to the security room of the villa area and wait. After waiting for several hours, when he found Taoran driving over, he rushed forward to stop the car, but was hit by the ban again. He complained endlessly, knowing that there was something special on Taoran's body or in the car that restrained him. No, after arriving at the nursing home, he waited for a long time. This time, he started to stop her early in the morning and always kept a distance of 3 meters from her. Taoran nodded when he heard this. In fact, she had roughly guessed Mr. Bai's ancestry before. There is a way to deal with Elizabeth. It is definitely not an ordinary person who can make Elizabeth hate her so much that she curses her by dying together. Elizabeth once said that she was betrayed, and that person should be Mr. Bai. So a long time ago, Taoran guessed that Mr. Bai and Elizabeth should be of the same blood. Then it is logical that Mr. Bai is suppressed. This is probably why Mr. Bai seems to be in such poor condition. The country itself had a repressive effect on him. Taoran's home has many feng shui arrays, spirit gathering arrays and evil warming arrays that she has set up to keep away Elizabeth's prying eyes. Almost everyone in the nursing home has an amulet she drew. After Shanshan was possessed last time, Taoran gave her a bunch of self-defense and evil-proof items. Of course, Taoran also had a lot on him, and in the car there were also crystals, peachwood, talismans and other things given by Taoist friends from all walks of life. Each of these things made Mr. Bai stay away from her. Taoran was secretly happy. These things are useful to Mr. Bai, but they are also useful to Elizabeth. Taoran quickly took off all the messy bracelets, charms and other things on his body and threw them into the car. Sure enough, this time, her approach did not cause Mr. Bai to step back. Taoran simply took a taxi and took Mr. Bai directly to a cafe to talk. How did you recognize me? At least a dozen people who met Taoran in the cafe didn't even look at her. She was clearly looking at an unfamiliar face, but Mr. Bai confirmed her very firmly. Breath, soul, induction. After eating some steak and drinking some hot coffee, Mr. Bai's condition was obviously much better. No matter how well you disguise yourself, I can still tell you, and he had memorized her car. Oh, Taoran sighed. Mr. Bai could recognize her at a glance, and Elizabeth must be the same. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 1022. Taoran looked Mr. Bai up and down. You are doing it just for me. Yes. Mr. Bai can understand what she means. Like Elizabeth, I have no real body. In order to see you, I accepted a commission just like I did in the world of cultivating immortals. The body you see now belongs to my client. Taoran couldn't help but gasp. In order to see her, not only did he come all the way, not only did he travel across time, but he also braved the country's rejection and restrictions on him. There is no doubt that he is being tortured every second he is here. And the longer he stays, the greater the damage will be to him. It's so solemn and unsettling. You have something very important. That's right. It's very important. Mr. Bai put down the coffee cup in his hand and leaned forward. Let me get straight to the point. The things you brought back from the survival game will help Elizabeth recover. And the day she returns will be the day you die. So no matter whether Taoran's determination to break away from Elizabeth is as firm as before, he still has to give it a try. Mr. Bai's words were actually something Taoran had guessed before. Now that she was told it bluntly, it still made her uncomfortable. You are like a tonic delicacy that she has been waiting to cook. She hasn't moved her chopsticks not because she doesn't want to eat, but because she has no teeth and stutters, and because you, the main ingredient, have other uses. Now everything is ready, be prepared, all you need is the last chance, she will never let you go. Now that I know this, I cannot remain indifferent. So, you came here to save me. Yes, but not entirely. I don't want you to lose your life in vain, but I also hope that we can cooperate to completely eliminate her. Are you also her target? Hundreds of years ago, I was the one who sealed her. Of course she hates me, but instead of getting rid of me, her first goal is to resurrect. And my mission is to stop her. So this time, I will do my part. And the reason why I cooperate with you is not only because you will be a good teammate, but also because of fate. Fate. Yes. The fate left by Elizabeth, me, and your ancestors several years ago. From Mr. Bai's words, Taoran learned about his ancestors that he had always wanted to know. The disease on her body is indeed a curse, and the person who cast the curse is indeed Elizabeth. Hundreds of years ago, vampires began to appear again in many areas of Europe after being dormant for thousands of years. The vampires are very greedy. They only want to live a luxurious life, so the first thing the vampires get involved with is the aristocratic class with money, power, land, and servants. Especially those nobles who are not strong-willed, have no fear of gods, and have no faith of their own. Elizabeth's father was an earl in Western Europe. He disdained the church, was fond of gold and silver, and was greedy for pleasure. He became the target of the vampires. He was captured and bitten by the vampires and mutated. As soon as Elizabeth was born, she was targeted by the Earl, who was in a manic and hungry state in the early stages of the mutation. She failed to escape in the end and was sucked by her father on the third day after she was born. When the body begins to undergo changes, how can such a small baby endure it? The doctors all shook their heads, and Elizabeth's mother took gold, silver, and jewelry to the most famous witch on the continent and begged her to use black magic to save the child. The use of black magic is prone to backlash. The witch looks down on gold and silver. She said she would only accept sacrifices of life. In the end, it was the Countess who saved Elizabeth at the cost of her own life. Next is the choice of bloodline. Pick one of two. In the end, Elizabeth succeeded in mutating with the help of magic water, and she became a vampire. Although the dying Countess was disappointed, she could only entrust her daughter to her biological sister Anne and the housekeeper, and told them to keep the child's bloodline secret and to raise the child well. According to rumors, after Elizabeth, who was only 10 days old at the time, successfully mutated, she giggled happily and her eyes turned strangely red. And black magic stimulated all the potential in her body. She is becoming more beautiful day by day, and her pair of dark eyes that occasionally turn red are also becoming deeper and deeper day by day. Her strength, intelligence, scheming, speed and sixth sense are far beyond those of her peers. She possesses the abilities of the vampires, and naturally also inherits the inertia of the vampires. She is greedy for pleasure and has great ambitions. She often bluntly states that she wants to become the most powerful woman in the entire continent and enjoy endless fiefs, glory, treasures, men and women. The Earl felt that his daughter was on the same road as him, so he naturally cherished her very much. He actually fully supports Elizabeth in learning black magic. Anne tried her best to stop but failed, and could only watch Elizabeth indulge in black magic. Already gifted, Elizabeth's strength has grown by leaps and bounds after receiving full support. She was bloodthirsty. From the beginning, she liked bloody meat, and gradually fell in love with drinking the blood of poultry and livestock. Soon, she was no longer satisfied and began to like the blood of lions, tigers, leopards, and other large animals. It didn't take long for her to get worse. She began to want to drink live blood. When she was in the woods, she caught a mouse alive, then broke its neck and bit it. After that, she tried bats, snakes, and even the black cat who accompanied her to study. She became more and more greedy for blood, which could excite her, make her happy, and make her whole body full of energy. On her 7th birthday, it happened to be a full moon night, and she couldn't suppress a strong desire in her blood. She bit into the neck of her friend Rita, who had grown up with her. She tasted human blood for once. To her, the ultimate deliciousness was so sweet and full of temptation. She turned Rita into a kindred spirit. After Anne knew about this, she could not sit idly by. She persuaded the Earl and took Elizabeth to the countryside to avoid the limelight. She also found 3 priests for her niece to change her twisted soul. Elizabeth was watched by her aunt's people and could no longer act recklessly. During the day, she obediently learns various knowledge. But at night, her greed began to show. The cold poultry blood and the birds that occasionally fell into the yard were no longer enough to satisfy her. She was prohibited from learning and using black magic and was often depressed. Soon, people around her began to suffer from headaches and stomach aches, and people in that village began to disappear. Over the past few years, Murakami disappeared, and more than a dozen farmers were killed or committed suicide. And that area is the Earl's territory. The Earl knew that the matter was related to his daughter, so he provided cover for Elizabeth. Therefore, it was 3 years later when Anne knew what Elizabeth had done. Someone witnessed Elizabeth's evil deeds and reported her. But under the Count's series of cruel operations, it was Rita who was finally pushed to the guillotine. She became Elizabeth's scapegoat. Her dearest friend died, but Elizabeth did not feel sad. Instead, she was happy to escape the blame and was intoxicated by the power of power. Instead of restraining her actions, she became more and more arrogant. Anne was very angry when she found out about it, and she had a big quarrel with the Earl about it. While driving her away, the Earl also took Elizabeth back to the castle and taught her black magic again. My 12th birthday is another full moon night. The Earl asked Elizabeth what gift she wanted. Elizabeth thought about it seriously, and then pointed to the seat under the Earl. She just wanted that. Notes: 1. In medieval Europe, a count was a local administrator, such as a county chief, who was appointed by the king. After a long time, he also became a semi-independent state. The duke's appointee is also called a count. He has great power and often becomes the ruler by the defender of social order. 2. The prototype of Elizabeth in this article is adapted from the vampire Countess Elizabeth in Western European history. Countess Bartlett and Lee Custer. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 1023. Elizabeth meant it. She can be too fond of entitlement. She also wanted to be a count. In this way, she can do whatever she wants like her father. So it wasn't until Elizabeth actually moved her hands that the wide-eyed Earl realized that his precious daughter was not joking. On the contrary, my daughter has been preparing for a long time. Yes, Elizabeth wanted to be the master of the castle when she was 10 years old. But she didn't have enough strength at that time. Fortunately, she has regained black magic in the past 2 years, and her abilities are getting stronger day by day. With the Count's connivance, she also cultivated several loyal servants through blood-sucking and mutation. After confirming that she was sure, she took action. Father and daughter fight together. The Count scolded his daughter for her disobedience. Elizabeth disagrees. Didn't you turn me into a monster? Didn't you say you love me the most? Why can't I compare to the same position? What does it mean if I hurt you? Even if I kill you, I am only seeking justice for my dead mother. Haha, you are nothing more than that. Although the Earl has a strong adult body and a lot of bonuses after becoming a vampire, he is not as good as Elizabeth, who has been growing up under the blessing of black magic for many years. When she hit her father with black magic that was regarded as forbidden by the world, the Count was quickly defeated. Due to the effect of black magic, in the end, the Count was not only incapacitated but also silenced. Elizabeth announced that her father was seriously injured and temporarily took over all rights. Without restraints, she behaved even more erratically. She simply found the witch who had saved her back then, became her teacher, and further studied black magic. The witch followed her to the castle. While enjoying the wealth and power, she also gave her everything she had. With the help of the witches, Elizabeth takes down the captain of her father's guard and uses dark magic to make him do whatever they want. 2 months later, the Count's nephew heard that his uncle was seriously ill and came to visit him. Elizabeth snorted, and the night before her cousin arrived, she asked the captain of the guard, who had joined the vampire clan, to lead someone to assassinate him in the woods. And so the Count's nephew died before he could reach the castle. Elizabeth danced with joy. Her father had no sons, no wives, and no illegitimate children. The only relatives with inheritance rights, except Elizabeth, the only daughter, were a nephew and his brother. Elizabeth could only kill her cousin and uncle, and all her father's talents would be hers. In the spring of the next year, Her uncle, who had lost his beloved son, came with troops. Elizabeth was prepared. Not only does she have a powerful knight escort and powerful black magic, she also released news that she wants to get married. Young ladies who are likely to inherit huge amounts of wealth, land, or even titles are the targets of many families who want to expand their power. So this time is the time for heroes to save beauty. Like her cousin, her uncle was defeated not long after he set foot in the earldom without even being able to see the castle. After killing all the rivals, the witch cast a spell, forcing the earl to write a letter to the king, leaving the title and all property to the only heir, his daughter Elizabeth. Many nobles coveted the earl's land and were eager to let useless girls inherit the land so that they could find ways to get a piece of the pie in the future, so many people in the palace facilitated this. Not long after, Elizabeth received confirmation from the king. And that day was the day the count died. The reason she didn't kill her father before was because she was waiting for the legal inheritance. Now, it's finally justified. She became the only countess on the continent and had supreme rights over the vast and fertile land. Too many people wanted to marry Elizabeth. Through the marriage, she received another large piece of land as a betrothal gift. Incomparably beautiful and charming, she easily took over her young husband. Not long after the marriage, the man began to be encouraged by her to go on an expedition to conquer the world. Her territory expanded again and again. Her power grew, but she was never satisfied. When the news came that the man had died in battle, she was not sad at all. Man, that's all she has. If one is gone, another one will do the work for her. Over the course of several decades, Elizabeth's territory doubled in size. On the day when all the black magic was learned, after the witch was drunk, she stabbed a poisonous dagger into the witch's chest, killed her master with her own hands, and took away all the witch's treasures and magic books. Her personal abilities are getting stronger and stronger. As the most powerful person in that land, no one can control her, including her aunt Anne. When her aunt came to stop her from killing, she spoke harshly, saying that she was so cruel and not worth her mother's life to protect. This remark angered Elizabeth. What do these people know? My mother died just to achieve greatness and become the queen of the entire continent. Since you care about my mother so much, then go underground to accompany her. Elizabeth, as cold and indifferent as ever, killed her aunt directly. And died with hatred, saying she regretted not killing her when she was a baby, and then the devil came to this world. Elizabeth continued to do evil with impunity. She captured many prisoners, kept them in the castle, tortured them, drank their blood, and enjoyed their pain. But she soon got tired of it. She felt that the blood of captive slaves did not taste good enough. So her team of knights began to capture refugees for her. Soon she got tired of it again. She wanted clean, higher quality blood. In particular, she found that women's blood seemed sweeter. Her demands are getting higher and higher. In order to meet her demands, the knights sometimes have no choice but to directly rob women and children. There were constant requests from the guards to withdraw from the cavaliers, but each time they were met with bloody suppression. The dissatisfaction with Elizabeth was only secret at first, but gradually began to spread among the people. The reputation of the cruel devil begins to spread. Elizabeth remained unimpressed. She has recently become obsessed with the blood of girls and is organizing her team of knights to capture girls. Now she enjoys fresh blood every day, not only for drinking, but also for bathing. The fresh blood of a woman can make her wrinkled face radiant and full of vitality. She likes it very much. She had to ask for more blood. In addition to her own enjoyment, there are also more and more vampires around her who have been selectively mutated by her and come to seek refuge. They became her new bodyguards. The vampires have stronger physical fitness and abilities. With such a strong team, it will only be a matter of time before they take over the entire Western European continent. Therefore, Elizabeth no longer even values the support of the established nobles and no longer needs the protection of human guards. She trusts the vampires even more. Without any scruples, she found that aristocratic women with extraordinary blood moved her heart even more. She hopes that these noble bloodlines can help her live forever and never grow old. Under her orders, her men were unambiguous every time they took action, and many noble ladies and ladies were captured by her in the castle. And every day, banquets were held in the castle, with singing and dancing and endless laughter. Nourished by blood, Elizabeth, who is in her 50s, is still as beautiful as she was in her 20s. More and more people were dissatisfied with Elizabeth. From commoners to nobles, everyone hated Elizabeth. Even the king heard about her atrocities and acquiesced in the following actions against her. "My mother is N. I am Elizabeth's cousin," Mr. Bai told Chaoran in a low voice. "The heroine who wears fast is really a boss." Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 1024. Mr. Bai lowered his eyes with hatred. "She is my enemy. She is a female devil who is stained with blood and has caused so many lives. Not only do I want revenge, I also have to fulfill my mother's mission and regrets. I want her to stop. This is the mission I have carried with me all these years. In order to achieve this goal, I will not hesitate to sacrifice my life." Mr. Bai's original name is Peter. Although his father was a vampire, because his parents loved each other and he was willing to restrain all the bad qualities in his blood for his mother, he was never bloodthirsty and even gradually gave up on blood. Under the influence, Mr. Bai and Elizabeth are completely opposite. He hated the part of his body that belonged to the vampires. He doesn't want his body to be driven by some external desires. He wants to become a valuable person with the ability to think and self-control. Therefore, he was sent to the church as a child. Also, after he turned 12, he had his own beliefs and values, and after receiving guidance, he suppressed all the negative things in his blood and returned to his parents. Under his father's teachings, after several years of study, he fully learned the essence of the vampire's abilities and became a young nobleman capable of benefiting a party. But the death of Mother Anne changed everything. Soon, something happened to Peter's father. He went to Elizabeth's territory to collect the body and met Elizabeth directly. They were both vampires and started fighting. Elizabeth obtained the witch's treasured scepter and practiced many evil magics that were against the laws of nature through forbidden books. She already has the ability to move the wind and rain in the castle and make the earth shake. Peter's father was extremely powerful, but he still lost. The vampire clan has its own rules, and members of the same clan cannot eat each other, but Elizabeth did not let her father go. Elizabeth drained Peter's father's blood and used it to soak the scepter. Peter, whose parents are dead, naturally wants revenge, but with the help of various cruel methods, Elizabeth's abilities are improving every day. Peter didn't have the power to defeat her. He went to find the most powerful master in magic in the country, the king's wizard. The wizard had already calculated that the catastrophe was coming and directly accepted Peter as his disciple. There is no other way. The castle where Elizabeth is located has long been covered with dark clouds and evil spirits. I am afraid that only Elizabeth's compatriots can enter and capture her. Peter is just the right person. In addition, under the recommendation of the wizard, Peter traveled to various parts of the continent to visit teachers and seek treasures. He became stronger despite suffering all kinds of hardships. When a few years later, Elizabeth's interest in land expansion, power, and wealth-making shifted to the maintenance of appearance, and she became almost obsessed with it, when reports accusing Elizabeth of crimes piled up on the king's desk, when even the people of Elizabeth's territory, when everyone began to complain about their earl, Mr. Bai began to take action with the support of all parties. They launched several rounds of assassinations against Elizabeth, but unfortunately, they all ended in failure. Elizabeth's strength is too strong, and with her vampire team, there is no chance of winning in a confrontation. Therefore, if they want to win, they will most likely have to use extraordinary methods. After some calculations, the imperial master sent Peter to the east coast of the mainland, where Peter waited for the so-called opportunity. It didn't take long for Peter's name to become famous throughout the continent. It is said that he is the most handsome man in the entire continent. It is said that he is now the richest man in the entire continent after doing silk and ceramics business with the distant Eastern civilization. It is said that he has the favor of the mysterious Eastern princess and is about to marry the most handsome Eastern man, a beautiful and noble woman. These rumors were swirling and it was hard not to catch Elizabeth's attention. The the most handsome, the richest, the most mysterious woman, are all the things she is most interested in. Especially the last one. Elizabeth claimed to be the most noble, beautiful, and mysterious woman in the West, and was rumored to be the most beautiful and noble Eastern woman, which made her feel itchy. If we take down this Oriental woman, wouldn't she be the truly number one woman in the world? If she drank the blood of this noble woman, she could probably stay young forever. Elizabeth soon learned that her cousin was on the East Coast to meet his fiancée. It just so happened that when my cousin came home, he would pass by her property. Elizabeth caused a robbery to change the route of her cousin's team, and used a storm to force her cousin deeper into her territory. She sent the old housekeeper to invite her, and also brought her a letter of explanation, for she was controlled by a witch and killed her aunt and uncle by mistake, expressing that she wanted to solemnly apologize and return her uncle's blood. The cousin just took his mighty entourage of hundreds of people to stay in the castle. After not seeing each other for decades, my cousin, who has a blood clan, has indeed aged slowly, is handsome and charming. He was dressed in gold, silver, and the most precious silks, and the luminous pearl hanging on his body was much larger than the one on Elizabeth's homemade crown. Elizabeth's eyes quickly focused on the woman in Oriental attire behind her cousin. The woman wears a veil and is completely covered. She couldn't see anything clearly, but the more this happened, the harder it was for her to suppress her interest. She could vaguely smell the special fragrance brought by women's different bloodlines. She hosted a dinner to entertain her cousin. At the banquet, she learned that the mysterious woman was a noble princess from an ancient Eastern country. My cousin had traveled in the East and had accumulated wealth that could rival other countries. No wonder my cousin entered her magnificent castle without any surprise or envy. Elizabeth decided to win over her cousin and take his money as her own as soon as possible. During the second half of the dinner, Elizabeth expressed her desire to apologize and sent away all the servants on both sides. The smell of the Oriental woman assaulted Elizabeth's senses, making her salivate and eager to get down to business. She used absurd and exaggerated apologies to persuade her cousin to drink cups of wine that she had fortified. The reason why he did not attack his cousin directly was because if he killed him, his cousin's money would not come to him. It would be better to let his cousin become his male favorite, obediently give everything to him, and make money for himself in the future. If she gets her cousin drunk, then they both belong to her. Elizabeth smiled more and more beautifully. Soon, Peter was drunk. Elizabeth couldn't wait to walk towards the Oriental woman and lifted her veil. The woman's beautiful and refined appearance moved Elizabeth's heart. Her smell and screams made Elizabeth not want to waste a second. Elizabeth has only one idea left: alienate her and keep her by her side forever. So, Elizabeth ducked and was behind the woman. The woman's snow-white neck and special breath made her stretch out her fangs and bite down without any extra thought. A mouthful of fresh blood is indeed unparalleledly sweet. Immediately afterwards, there was a spicy feeling that made people extremely excited. Elizabeth loved the taste. She sucked greedily again and again. A mouthful of blood was swallowed. However, she suddenly found that the spicy food that had entered her esophagus was burning like fire. The acrimony turned into stinging. The sting quickly turned into excruciating pain. Elizabeth pushed the woman away. But the severe pain reached his soul instantly. She wanted to spit out the blood she had just swallowed, but then she realized that she couldn't. A terrible taboo smell suddenly emerged. Taboo. This woman. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 1025. There was a sudden thunder in the sky. What followed was a series of roars. Elizabeth, who had never had any fear, was trembling with fear. The legendary thunder is rolling. She seemed to realize that the taboo placed on her, the taboo that made her extremely painful, allowed her to vaguely see what the taboo at the gate of hell was. A shadow flashed before his eyes. Elizabeth raised her eyes and saw that the woman who had just been asked to be thrown out was protected by her cousin who was flying out. My cousin is not drunk, he is just pretending. So they came prepared from the beginning, and the taboos on women were also prepared for her. How vicious! Looking at the painful woman lying in Peter's arms, Elizabeth cast a spell and the woman appeared. Really? Really? She was cheated. Feeling the pain in her soul, the furious Elizabeth quickly used her black magic. She's going to kill these bitches. When Peter saw this, he immediately stopped him and recited a spell silently. Dark clouds began to gather above the castle, and in the dark clouds, an unpleasant and harsh crow could be heard. A fishy stench began to fill the air, and pairs of eyes and wings were in the darkness, seemingly ready to attack at any moment. But with a crack of thunder, the dark clouds that Elizabeth had finally gathered were dispersed. The crows in the black clouds screamed miserably, and black feathers fell all over the sky. The beating candles stabilized again, and the entire hall became much brighter. Under the guidance of Peter, the thunder and lightning struck directly through the window one after another. Elizabeth was in so much pain that she couldn't maintain the black magic for a while. The thunder and lightning with the will to punish made her subconsciously scream and avoid. Only then did she know that the other party was not only prepared, but also fully prepared. It was only then that she realized that her powerful abilities were gradually dissipating. Therefore, what caused her pain just now was not just the power of taboo. Elizabeth shouted who was coming, but then she heard the noisy killing outside. It turned out that Peter's people were already fighting with her people. Hateful. Elizabeth then remembered that Peter had brought hundreds of people with him. Nearly half of them followed him into the castle. Originally, Elizabeth did not allow those people to enter, but Peter said that this was the pomp and respect he gave his fiancée. He would not enter the castle if his followers were not allowed to follow him. Elizabeth, who was fascinated by money and women, made an exception and agreed. Now that I think about it, I feel regretful. Also, her vampire subordinates should be stronger than humans, but why do the sounds outside sound so evenly matched? What Peter brought, these are not ordinary people, right? Elizabeth called to her Black Knight again. The Black Knight is her captain of the bodyguard. Not only is he a vampire, he has also learned black magic and is her right-hand man. But the Black Knight didn't show up, and only the bat sent a message saying that he couldn't get away. It turns out that the Black Knight at this moment is fighting against the National Master who is following Peter in disguise. Black magic meets orthodox white witchcraft, and the two are evenly matched. Elizabeth looked out the window again and found that there was a large area of red outside. That's fire. Not far away, an overwhelming sound of attack was coming. Another bat broke in through the window and brought her news that thousands of soldiers and civilians were surrounding and attacking the castle. How unreasonable. Elizabeth could no longer ignore the pain and forcibly summoned her scepter that was still soaked in the blood pool. Above the head, thunder struck the castle one after another. She violated a taboo and angered the will of heaven and earth. She was treated as an evil spirit by heaven. Tauran held his breath and listened to Mr. Bai talking about the past, the so-called fate. Wait a minute, let me ask, Who is that Oriental woman? It's your ancestor. What are her taboos? Why would Elizabeth have a problem drinking her blood? Because she was pregnant. She was almost 9 months pregnant at the time. Taoran was startled. Putting aside the matter of pregnancy, she suddenly thought that the Mr. Bai in front of her was once the fiancé of her ancestor, right? So. Could it be? Taoran shuddered. Is that child Mr. Bai's? Mr. Bai is his ancestor? Then shouldn't I call him ancestor? Mr. Bai couldn't help but laugh when he saw Taoran drinking a full cup of Americano as boiled water in the mess. You are worrying too much. I am not your ancestor. Then he said slowly. The vampires don't have many taboos. In addition to not being able to eat each other, the blood of pregnant women is also forbidden. The vampires are a heterogeneous species, and the tendency to suck blood is natural. However, if you suck the blood of pregnant women, you will eat 2 lives, which is too harmful to nature. Against the law of heaven. Therefore, no matter how greedy Elizabeth was, she would never attack pregnant women. This is a taboo that runs in the blood of the vampires. Once the taboo is broken, you will be punished by God. Wait. So, you deliberately took my ancestor and let a pregnant woman lure Elizabeth into taking the bait. I'm not that bad. Mr. Bai shook his head. You still remember that I mentioned before that the National Master planned to let me go to the East Coast, saying that there was an opportunity there? The opportunity I found was your ancestor. I walked around the East Coast for a month and saw your ancestors on a slave selling stand in a market. Her body was dirty and bruised, but it could not hide her special brilliance. At that time, her belly was already more than 5 months old. When she and I looked at each other, I, who had learned witchcraft, decided that she was the opportunity. I bought her, but I didn't force anything on her. On the contrary, the first thing she asked me was about the vampires. After careful questioning, I found out that she and her family took a Persian ship to do business in Dashi, but they encountered a storm. Their ship had no choice but to dock on the East Coast. They originally planned to sell the entire shipload of silk and return, but they encountered a vampire. The entire ship's cargo was robbed. They rose up to resist, but the vampires started killing them. Everyone on the boat, including her parents and brothers, were killed. Her husband also died under the fangs of the vampire clan in order to protect her and the child. She managed to escape, but was quickly caught by human traffickers because of her special Oriental face. She survived just to have a baby and avenge her family. It was such a coincidence that she clearly remembered that the vampire who robbed her wanted to use silk to donate and seek refuge with Elizabeth. She remembered Elizabeth as a person. So she made it clear from the beginning that she would do anything to get revenge. Of course, I also promised her that I would do my best to protect her from giving birth to a child safely, raise her child, and try my best to let her child return to her distant homeland in the East. The appearance of the woman completes the most important part of the plan to eliminate the demon. The plan takes shape. It was indeed a God-given opportunity. Elizabeth was so powerful that she was beyond human power. Isn't the best way to borrow the power of God? Let her take the initiative to violate taboos, just to achieve this effect. Elizabeth is too cunning and suspicious, and they know that all rhythms must be controlled by Elizabeth. So they weaved and spread several most as bait. Elizabeth took the bait. They followed the current and easily entered this castle as strong as a cage. The woman dressed up as an Oriental princess and suddenly became Peter's fiancée. Her belly was completely invisible due to the magic the National Master had done. The fact is that with Elizabeth's ability, if she were as cautious as she usually is when dealing with strangers, and had given the woman a spell to check earlier, she would have been able to see that the belly was just the most basic cover-up. But she was too arrogant, too self-righteous, too greedy, and too impatient. Of course, in order to get Peter drunk, she herself drank too much wine, and she was a little excited and out of control, but she didn't realize the problem at all. The woman also drank the potion prepared by the imperial master in advance. This potion was prepared from the holy water of the Holy See and had the effect of naturally warding off evil spirits. It can not only deal with Elizabeth, but also protect the woman and fetus to the greatest extent. The woman never hesitated from beginning to end. In this strange land, she was isolated and helpless, with no relatives or relatives. Not to mention giving birth to and raising a child safely, as a foreigner, she herself might not survive. It is better to rush for it, which will give the child a chance to grow up safely and the possibility of revenge. Her name is Xiao Shan. She is very brave. This is the same as you. She is very determined and strong, and has not flinched at all. Facing Elizabeth's pressure, she neither showed timidity nor arrogance, which aroused Elizabeth's favor and curiosity to the greatest extent. And interest. She was the most important part of the whole plan, and she didn't make a single mistake. She was great. After hearing this, Taoran finally understood the source of Elizabeth's uncontrollable hatred when she looked at him several times. As the direct key link in the mission of eliminating demons, for the simple-minded Elizabeth, she probably hates her ancestors more than Mr. Bai. And she used herself as her enemy to work for her comeback, so she would have a much greater sense of accomplishment, right? Taoran thought of the blood mole skills the old witch had given her. She wished she could rely on those skills, right? Fortunately, I don't care about it, otherwise how ironic would it be? That's why she would be so angry when she saw that she hadn't even broken out the bloody mole on those few occasions. That probably reminded her of hundreds of years ago. Taoran took a deep breath. You continue. God's punishment is coming. Bolts of lightning struck down, making it difficult for the black clouds above the castle to gather. Elizabeth's originally domineering magic was difficult to mobilize at that time. And the restrictions in her blood caused her vampire skills to only be able to exert half of their capabilities. In the fight with Peter, Elizabeth no longer had any advantage. And soon, Peter, who was well prepared, took out artifacts enshrined in the Holy See to suppress and seal Elizabeth. Finally, Peter inserted an artifact dagger into Elizabeth's chest. Black blood and black gas kept coming out of Elizabeth's wounds. She covered her wound, panicked and surprised. And the wailing of the compatriots continued to be heard outside the window, and the soldiers and civilians chanted the slogan "Kill Elizabeth" wave after wave. Elizabeth, who aspired to be the queen of the continent, never imagined that she would end up with such a pitiful end. She was unwilling to accept anything, and she only thought that Peter wanted to occupy her castle, title, and land, so she would do such a despicable act. She couldn't accept it and couldn't tolerate it. She won't die. She can't bear this injustice. She began to summon her staff again. Although black magic is banned, the scepter and her have long been channeled. She can't do dark magic, but the wand can. The scepter she had preserved with her blood for many years was now ready to be put to use. The heroine who wears fast is really a boss. Author, Ruo Shui 1111. Chapter 1026. Elizabeth was busy calling her scepter, while on the other side, the hill was inflated by Elizabeth's fall. Her body, which showed signs of alienation after being sucked blood, automatically activated its protective mechanism, and labor pains hit her quickly. She was about to give birth. Peter immediately took out the evil-proof verbena he had prepared long ago and placed a protective circle under the hill. Xiaoshan warned Peter, "If I show signs of mutation, don't hesitate to kill me. I must not become a monster. If my child has any problems, please don't show mercy." "Peter, don't worry. I will do my best to fulfill what I promised you. The child will be fine and will grow up safely and return to his hometown." Peter arranged several holy objects of light that he had obtained from the Holy See, covered the hill with a black cloak, and cast an isolation formation on her. At this time, Elizabeth finally successfully summoned the scepter. A stream of evil black energy emerged from the ground, and strands of black energy surrounded Elizabeth and gathered at her wounds, trying hard to prevent the loss of her life. Elizabeth began to threaten to force Peter to stop and get everyone out of the castle, otherwise she would kill everyone he brought with him. In order to threaten Peter, Elizabeth commanded the scepter and killed 3 people on the spot. But even so, Peter still refused. "Are you sure?" Elizabeth smiled. "If you don't leave now, when the power of my scepter is fully activated, everyone in the castle will die. Even you are no exception." "Are you sure?" "Peter, do you think we are afraid of death? The people I brought, including me, are all prepared to die. Do you know why? Because we all have a blood feud with you. As long as we can get rid of you and do justice for heaven, everyone will no matter what." Elizabeth couldn't figure this out. She doesn't understand why there are people in the world who are not afraid of death. Revenge. What is that? For their loved ones. Don't even care about your life? She didn't feel sad at all when she thought about how she had killed her father, master, aunt, and uncle with her own hands. She couldn't understand. Why are there so many stupid people in the world? Elizabeth didn't believe it. She was still working hard to cast the magic of the scepter and killed several more people one after another. She wanted to use this method to force Peter back. But not only failed, she was stabbed by Peter with another dagger. The dagger was coated with potion. After it penetrated her flesh, even her soul was trembling. The pain was so painful that she just wanted to roll around. Through the window, Elizabeth heard the roar of people outside getting closer and louder. And as Peter cast a spell across from her, she lost her vitality faster and faster. At the same time, she vaguely heard a hymn that further stung her soul. The entire castle was surrounded, and the sky outside the castle was a layer of light gold. She was completely surrounded. She sensed that people from the Holy See were coming. She also smelled white witchcraft. They were going to destroy her completely. She knew she was doomed. Her eyes suddenly turned red. This time, she no longer used the magic power of the scepter to repair her body, but used all the remaining power in her body to use the scepter. In an instant, the entire castle was once again filled with black energy. Thorns spread inside and outside the castle. Black thorns climbed up the walls and broke through the floor, threatening to swallow everything in the entire castle. Elizabeth laughed loudly. "Even if I die, I will not disappear. I still want you to accompany me." The formation set up by the National Master using the light spell was broken up by the thorns that broke out of the ground before it could be completed. He could only draw his own blood to cast a spell to slow down the speed of the darkness. Peter was busy inducing the sky thunder to guard the hill that was working hard to give birth, so that the thorns and bats that popped out from time to time in the darkness could not get close. Elizabeth made a decision. He's going to die anyway, so instead of wearing it out and destroying his body and soul, it's better to stay the same. Then a few years later, she might have a chance to make a comeback. In the end, Elizabeth used the most powerful method in the forbidden book of black magic, the blood-activating sacrifice. There were 100 servants in the castle, 300 living people in the dungeon whom she captured for blood, and more than 100 of Peter's men. She would use the blood of these 500 people to open another path for herself. Black magic opens the way, blood is sacrificed, the body can die, but her soul cannot. She will not give up the castle to others, her spirit will remain in the castle forever, for all the generations to come. The bloodthirsty scepter harvested lives one after another, and the blood flowing on the ground turned from red to black. The entire castle, except for the minefield where the hill was located, was as dark as ink. The black thorns grew more and more wildly, seeming to surround the entire castle. This is a recreation forbidden place that Elizabeth created for herself. As long as she protects her soul, she believes that she will soon find a way to make a comeback. However, at this moment, the baby was born, and a cry brought the newborn light, but it accidentally made a gap in the black sacrificial plate. Elizabeth, whose life had merged with the thick darkness, was so angry that she went crazy. Looking at her lifeless body on the ground and thinking of the Queen's dream that had been torn apart, she suddenly changed her mind. How could she let that woman and child go? That woman ruined her good deeds again and again. How could you take advantage of her? But the woman was surrounded by thunder, and her scepter could not pass through. But never mind. Elizabeth had tasted women's blood and that was enough. Curse, it can be done. So, the remaining demonic energy that could have been used to fill the gap was used by her to cast a spell. That is, that newborn girl, her descendants will only be girls in the future, she will never live past the age of 24, she will always die miserably in the most beautiful flower season, she will always have to bear the pain of blood, and she will never get what she wants, life after life, unless she breaks the curse herself. There is no other way. What's so scary about death? Knowing that you will die, carrying regrets, suffering pain, waiting to die, that is the most painful thing. The baby girl's eyebrows flashed red. Before Peter could attack, a curse born from the blood had taken effect. Elizabeth's soul was dark and flashed in the air from time to time. Peter, I give you one last chance. Get out of here now, and I will spare your life. The crystal ball on the top of her scepter was like obsidian, shining with an evil stench. Elizabeth naturally didn't want to let Peter go, but she was already aware of what Peter was doing. He is using his life as a guide to keep the gap in her sacrificial plate open, and is even trying to integrate into her forbidden area. Madman! Madman! If he succeeds, even if his soul is immortal, it will not be easy to come back in the future. You and him will be entangled forever, their fates dependent on each other, and they will live and die together. This is not the result Elizabeth wants. It just so happens that this guy is also a vampire, and the scepter has been soaked in his father's blood, so the scepter doesn't seem to be repulsive to him. Elizabeth was a little panicked. She would rather let Peter go than let him die here.